Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about the firm's long run total cost curve, which is this curve here, LRTC, and I'm going to connect the shape of our long run total cost curve to our U-shaped long run average cost curve, that's this curve here, LRAC. Now as usual, I'll list all related videos in the description, and there will be contents in the description too if you want to skip to any part. Alright, let's start at the beginning though. A firm's total cost is just going to be equal to the total cost that they incur as a result of producing some quantity Q of a good. So when we're thinking about a total cost curve, we're looking for a visual representation of how total cost changes as we increase the quantity produced. Now, when we think about our short run total cost curve, which I think is more common and more familiar to students, it is often represented like this. We do think about how total cost changes as we increase quantity, but we will be in the short run, so we're fixing at least one input to production. Often we'll just say that capital K is fixed at some amount, and we notate that K bar. Now in contrast, in the long run, all of our inputs can be varied. So the long run total cost curve will track our total cost as the firm increases quantity, but the firm will be choosing the cheapest way of producing their amounts given that they're free to vary all inputs to production. And whilst you can see that the general shape of our long run total cost is very similar to what our short run total cost looks like, the reasons for their shapes are actually quite different because of this difference in whether all our inputs are variable or not. And to this, it is really the U shape of our long run average cost curve that underlies this shape of our long run total cost curve. Our long run average cost curve will start with a downward sloping section, and this downward sloping section represents economies of scale, where the firm is able to reduce their long run average costs as they increase their scale as they produce more. And there are lots of reasons why a firm might enjoy economies of scale. For instance, Adam Smith in Wealth of Nations talks about efficiency gains in labor from repeating a task and specialization. So as quantity increase, as we produce more, our labor will get quicker and better at a task the more they do it. But more than that, as Q increases, we hire more labor, and that means we can divide our labor up so that they're able to focus and specialize on specific tasks rather than one person doing lots of different things. So the classic factory line setup is the idea. Another reason for economies of scale might be if a firm is using a technology that exhibits what we call increasing returns to scale. So increasing returns to scale means that if our firm increases all of their inputs by some proportion, the quantity that they get back increases by greater than that proportion. So if they double all their inputs, let's just say capital and labor, they get more than double the output back. And this means that when the firm produces larger amounts, it produces at larger scales, each unit that they make uses up less inputs on average, so average costs decrease. So that's another way we can get economies of scale. A third reason might be if there are cost advantages to buying larger quantities of the inputs to production. So bulk buying discounts, for instance. So let's say I run a restaurant and I produce a lot. So my quantity is very high. I'm expanding my scale. And that now means that I can buy my ingredients in bulk. So I get a discount, and that will mean that I can produce each meal at a lower cost. So average costs decrease. So these are different explanations for economies of scale, and different textbooks and courses might focus on specific reasons rather than others. In any case, the reduction in average costs will mean for our long run total cost that initially as quantity increases, our long run total cost will increase at a decreasing rate, expressing that lower average cost. So something like this. So we're still increasing overall, but at a decreasing rate due to economies of scale of lower average cost. Now, after this, long run average costs are depicted to start to increase. So we get a region of diseconomies of scale. Long run average costs are increasing. To explain this increase, some textbooks talk about fixed capacities that the firm faces in the long run. So we only have so much land or labor or only so much of a particular natural resource. And once the firm starts exhausting these capacities, their average cost will increase because the firm is forced to use a more expensive mix of inputs that is less efficient, so average costs increase. So that's one argument for diseconomies of scale. Now, one thing you might say is that these fixed capacities do differ from our short-run fixed inputs because there's no possibility of getting rid of these constraints. So that's how they really differ from the short-run fixed inputs to production. Now, related to this, we might say if those fixed capacities become more expensive as they get more scarce, then the firm's cost of inputs to production will increase as their quantity increases. One example that comes to mind, for instance, is Argyle pink diamonds. They come from a mine in Western Australia, and there's only a limited amount of them left. So the diamonds themselves have become more and more expensive because of that scarcity. And so the average cost of, say, jewelry that uses Argyle diamonds will increase as they increase the quantity of jewelry that they make, because in producing that jewelry, they are making the input to production, that fixed capacity, more scarce and more expensive. So that's another possibility for our diseconomies of scale. Another nice argument that I don't mind centers around the observation that large organizations or institutions, like hospitals or universities, for instance, they get more difficult and harder to manage as they get bigger. So because of their size, because of becoming bigger, you get these needs in the organization for middle management or additional administration just to organize stuff. And these additional costs don't actually produce any more output, but rather just function to organize everything because the institution is so big. This will drive up marginal and then essentially average costs. And that's another story that can explain diseconomies of scale. In any case, this increase in long-run average costs means that our long-run total costs will start increasing at an increasing instead of decreasing rate. So something like this. And this is how you will often see the shape of our long-run total cost curve. And really, it's just expressing what we think is going on with our long-run average costs. Now, one thing I haven't explained here is that the short-run total cost curve, going back to that diagram we saw before, it has a positive vertical axis intercept because the firm in the short run incurs some fixed costs, and those fixed costs are sunk. So even if they produce 0 units, our firm still has to pay those fixed costs. So that's why their total cost curve starts at that positive shifted up position. In the case of the long run though, because all of our inputs to production are variable, our long run total cost curve will just start from the origin. And so that's it. That's the shape of our long run total cost curve, or at least how it's often drawn, and how it's related to the U-shape of our long-run average cost curve. I hope that the video has helped. If it did, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching my stuff. You can also visit me at www.econhelp.com.au for more study materials and practice. Thanks a lot, guys.